It's 10 a.m. right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning and welcome to a fresh round of relevant and current business conversations. And it happens here at Business Morning, coming to you live on Channels Television. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's start off with oil prices. It rose by as much as $1 a barrel after dropping below key technical support levels in the previous session, as an oil standoff between Europe and Russia focused investors' minds on how tight fuel supply may become. Brent crude futures gained 63 cents to $88.63 a barrel after closing at the lowest since early February in the previous session. U.S. crude futures were up 70 cents at $82.64 a barrel. Prices drew support from Russian President Vladimir Putin's threat to hold the country's oil and gas export if price caps are imposed by European buyers. The European Union proposed capping Russian gas prices only hours later, raising the risk of rationing in some of the world's richest countries this winter if Moscow carries out its threat. Russia's Gazprom has already halted flows from the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, cutting off a substantial percentage of supply to Europe. Well, staying in that space, wholesome gasoline prices are expected to keep falling in the coming months as the United States refineries overproduce fuel to try to rebuild low stocks of diesel and heating oil. U.S. inventories of distillate products, which also include jet fuel, are the lowest levels in more than a decade. Margins to make those products have remained high due to heavy demand from Europe and elsewhere, and a dearth of refining capacity to meet that demand. Gasoline demand has also been high, but it's waning now that the U.S. driving season is coming to a close. U.S. independent refiners indicate earlier this year that they would continue to run at high rates even if gasoline demand dropped, in order to replenish low middle distillate inventories. Middle distillate inventories held by industry in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development totaled 483.6 million barrels in June. And that's down 2.5% from February, according to data from the International Energy Agency. Well, our commodities now. Malaysian palm oil futures eked out gains on Thursday after sharp declines in recent sessions, with traders now awaiting data from the country's palm oil board while monitoring lockdown developments in China. The benchmark palm oil contracts for November delivery on Bursa Malaysia Derivatives Exchange gained 0.05% to 3,692 ringgit a ton by midday after hitting a 6-week low in the previous session. Palm oil's contract has been on a steady downtrend in the past 10 sessions, losing around 14% since the 24th of August. We'll stay on commodities, but that'll be after this short break. We'll have a conversation with a financial derivatives company. Just stay with us. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. It's commodities time now, and we have Juliet Adenuga, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company, joining us for the second time this week. On Tuesday, we had to do virtual, but good to see you physically today.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. Yeah, so we see a lot of movements with oil prices. As at the time you had this slide on, Brent crude had slumped, but later on, it's gained. It was back up $1. I mean, that's the last one I saw. And then it's all, of course, it's all connected to what's going on between Russia and the European Union. First, it was the G7 threatening price cap. Yeah. Now the EU have joined in, and Russia is saying, well, we're not going to take this line down.
Yeah, the oil price is actually faced with a lot of challenges now. A lot of factors are affecting what's happening in the oil, global oil market, because there are so many issues to consider. We notice that the dollar is getting stronger. We notice
and pound is getting weaker.
Yes, and we notice we have the other aspects of interest rate hikes coming up, which we know can introduce a little bit of recession. And you know that can also spell a reduction in economic activities. We also know what's happening in China. They're not yet done with COVID, and it's become a major issue. A particular city that has more than 21 million people is on total lockdown. they are reducing or maybe restricting movement so that the virus won't be spread further. So you notice that globally, economic growth globally is not really looking so good. And that spells doom for oil price, because oil price is driven by economic activities. It's driven by demand for oil. And when the economic activity is affected, it's definitely going to affect what happens in the oil market. And there are other factors. I told you before that ordinary speculation, sentiments, anything, any information from any major producer or a country can spike a change in any direction. So these are some of the things affecting the oil price globally and what we're seeing now with the oil price.
Yeah, very uncertain at this time, because if Russia has said that they're going to turn off oil and gas to European countries if they implement that price cap. So that's one is a major issue on its own.
Yes.
And then, of course, we have the 100,000. But I mean, I think you said on Tuesday that the 100,000 cuts by OPEC Plus will not make any difference.
It won't make any difference because it wasn't supposed to even be a long outstanding. It was just for a month. They're going to end that in October. So it wasn't meant to be, it was just something that they introduced for a short while, and it wasn't going to make a lot of difference, and it's ending in October. So I don't think we should just dwell more on that, because even the effects it had been overridden by some other things. Once there are new information or someone says something or something happens in any of the major players, you begin to see the price of oil tumbling up and down and responding to what is happening at that moment. And now, that's why the price can change twice even in a day or more, depending on what happens.
I think more than 3 times in a day.
Change.
Then we have the price hike. Federal Reserve, the United States, we're expecting 0.75.
Yes.
This is part of the reason why the dollar keeps getting stronger.
Yes.
And then that, of course, affects other currencies and the price of oil and commodities. Even crypto is affected. So what kind of impacts do we expect if they eventually put that 0.75?
The U.S. Fed is not even, they are so single-minded about dealing with inflation. And they are using the tool of interest rates, contractionary monetary policy. Let's hike up. They know what it's supposed to have an impact of what? Reducing economic activities, because people, the marginal propensity to save will rise up, because it will become more interesting and more appealing to save and invest than to consume. So that is a tool that the U.S. Fed is bent on using. In short, in one of the speeches in Wyoming, on the 26th of August, Putin was very blunt and even said that even faced with unemployment, which we know a recession introduced through interest rates can bring, interest rate hike can bring, he said he still won't stop the focus. The focus now for the US Fed is to stabilize price. We are going to ensure that we kill this inflation, we curb it, we stop it.
But can they really kill it? I mean, we see a hike in interest rate, but we do not see a reduction in inflation.
But the first time, the last hike, there was a drop from 8 points, it went down, from 9 points, it went down to 8. So you don't know what this particular one we have and the impact it will have on inflation. You can't really say, rule it out. They know what they want to achieve, and they are single-minded about it. So for now, what they are focusing on is that, and he kept emphasizing that in the face of any other thing, he's not going to move. So they are going to, it's very, very likely that they will inch up, and that makes the U.S. economy more attractive. People want to invest there.
So what does it mean? What does a stronger dollar mean for a country like Nigeria, for instance?
For instance, the stronger dollar means a drop in oil price. A stronger dollar means that it will become, our revenue from oil is going to drop. And our external reserve has gone below the benchmark already. It's not really too good for us. A stronger dollar also means, a stronger dollar brought about by interest rate hike also means that our debt servicing will become more expensive. It's not really too good a news for us. The one aspect I know it's good is imported inflation. If the hike reduces inflation can be, better curbed for us, or better for us, our import bill, But in terms of maybe our mainstay, which is our oil revenue, the interest rate hike, strengthening the dollar, not good for us, because the price of oil drops for that. And that is our mainstay, affects our revenue, affects our forex reserve, and the debt burden also increases.
I think that's the biggest burden we have to bear. Then Saudi Arabia, you said, is to cut prices for Asian and European buyers.
In terms of?
Oil.
For Asia and Europe, yes. Well, that's it's like a sentimental thing for Saudi.
Okay, because of the economic stress.
It's a sentimental thing, just
especially in European countries,
them.
Germany and all of that, they're really facing a lot.
They're facing a lot, but Saudi is tending towards being more, understanding of those other Asian countries and relieving them a little bit of the burden of what is happening in the whole economy globally.
Okay. Then in Nigeria, I think Nigerians can sigh a little bit of sigh of relief. 5% telco excise duty suspension. Should we celebrate, or we won't know when it comes or not? Because we didn't know when they removed the subsidy in electricity.
Yes, but you know that in every tax there is the impact and the incidence of every tax. The impact is borne by the first, the first point of call, the first person that pays the tax. But the incidence is borne by the consumers. So I think the telecoms actually kicked against that because they emphasize that consistently there are so many taxes already existing. They know that the incidence will be borne by the consumers. So they emphasize that introducing this tax is not even good for economic growth because it's a challenge to them to penetrate the rural areas, which is very capital intensive. They need a lot of money to be able to penetrate. And we know that anytime there is up to a 10% penetration of broadband in rural areas, it has a corresponding 2.5% impact on GDP. GDP per capita, it shoots it up. Telecoms is one of the main sources of revenue recently for the government.
Yeah, ICT made, I think, the highest contribution to GDP in the last quarter.
So they kicked against it. If we do this, these people, not only will it hamper economic growth in this direction, but also the people that will bear the incident, if they notice that you've introduced this, they can have alternatives. There's a VoIP, voice over internet protocol, where you can do calls through WhatsApp, you can do calls through Facebook now, you can use Telegram. People will just shift, and then the aim of government to raise revenue will be defeated. Because people won't make calls, they won't make direct calls, they will use all those other voice over alternatives to make calls. So I think they saw reason, the federal government saw reason with going this route and decided to look for other alternatives.
But it's just a suspension.
I hope so.
It's just a suspension. I know when we were talking about electricity and then we didn't know when it came on us and we were paying even more.
But we have alternatives. There are alternatives to calls. There are alternatives to making direct calls. You can use WhatsApp. It's not compulsory. They can introduce the tax. If it becomes so expensive, people will look for other ways of communicating. You can't, Nigerians are stressed. The disposable income, people are trying to survive. It will not be easy to introduce any extra expense on people now. It won't be easy. People will push back against it. Even the telecoms were pushing back. They said, no, this is not good for our business and for the economic growth of the nation.
All right. So let's just see a little bit of what's going on in the core commodity now. Right there, we see elevated price of cocoa, good for Nigeria's export revenues. Are we making the most of it?
They expected, on Tuesday we were talking about the pod disease. So I don't think this price hike might be as a result of reduction in supply, because they are dealing with the pod.
Yeah, the other time it was because of fertilizer for countries like Ghana and all of that.
Now they're dealing with the pod disease and the challenge of excessive rainfall. Cocoa doesn't need excessive rainfall. Moist is good for it, and they are getting towards the main harvest, and they don't need that. So I think it's out of shrinkage in supply that this price we're seeing here is coming from.
What else is happening with commodities prices?
Yes, prices are basically, we know that apart from the new yam that dropped a little bit, Gari is still elevated, rice still elevated, flour elevated. Apart from the beans and tomatoes and the new yam that recorded a little reduction.
How come beans is at 1 year low? Okay, 14,000. What's driving that? Is this harvest season?
Harvest is
tomatoes also.
Tomatoes, a little dryness, I think, is what caused about that change in the 3,000, and more of import, more supply from harvests, and then the beans too. Harvest is what is affecting the price, but basically it's almost like the same thing with increase in most commodities in the markets, in their prices.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Juliet Adenuga, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you
We'll
for
certainly
having
follow the
me.
space.
Thank
I
you.
mean, all of these concern us, the gari, the yam.
Yeah, that's what we eat every
That's
day.
staple.
It's staple. Yes, very, very important.
All right.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for having me.
We do have another conversation, of course, coming up, and it's not in commodity. You want to find out what it is? All right. I won't let the cat out of the bag until after the break. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. A social enterprise is an organization that applies commercial strategies to maximize improvement in financial, social, and environmental well-being. In summary, social enterprises seek to maximize profits while maximizing benefits to the society and the environment. In Nigeria, there are about 440,000 of them. What are they doing? Are you feeling their impacts? Well, we have Asai Alile, the Chief Executive Officer of Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation, operating one of those 440,000 we talked about, to tell us what are they doing? Am I feeling your impacts? Good morning, Asai. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. I mean, they're doing a lot of work, especially in the communities. Things have changed over the last few years, but I tell you that a lot of work has been done.
What kind of work?
I mean, when you talk about community-based organization and social enterprises, you're talking about people that are creating interventions between the people and the government, and also the private sector. So we're doing work in health, in environment, in enterprise, so just different types of things. And especially during the pandemic, you'd have noticed that quite a lot of them were still on the road doing a lot of work while we were all in our houses, hiding ourselves and waiting for the pandemic to pass.
Okay, so those packages that we're getting, but now we have, well, not necessarily another set. We have inflation to deal with, squeeze liquidity to deal with, recession knocking on the door of a lot of economies, hike in energy prices. So what is the social entrepreneurs like you, what are you guys supposed to be doing to help buffer the effect of this?
I must tell you that there are challenges everywhere. I mean, we're in a season where everything is hitting us from every side. So what we're doing 5 years ago, it cannot be what we're doing now, because now you need more to do more, you know, and the numbers.
And you guys also need a source.
Yes, we need a source, and the economy is not even doing well as well. So the kind of funding we're receiving 3 years ago is not the kind of funding you get now. A lot of people are backing off, and we're trying to encourage more local philanthropists to get involved into solving the issues and the challenges that we see in the world today. So I mean, what people are doing more, are being more strategic. So you're realizing that when you go into a certain community, maybe in Kwara State now, or you're in a community in Edo State, you are trying to find out exactly what the issues are and working together with other NGOs. So people are realizing that you can't do this on your own. Even if your focus is health, once you go in there and solve a problem, people have to eat. Then economy comes into play, and then you have so many other things happening. So everybody has to work and synergize together to make sure that we come up with a solution. Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, of course, funding is squeezed everywhere from not just Nigeria, everywhere.
All, yeah.
But what do you promise those funds to make them, you know, believe in you? What message do you preach to them?
I mean, I wish there was a message.
Because you'll be preaching a harder message.
It's a tough message. It's a tough message, but I think people are becoming more aware, especially when the pandemic happened. I must say that it's even for us as Africa and Nigerians, our giving went up by 400%, and this is giving from 1 naira to the billions that were given, because we all realized that nobody was going to come and save us. We had to save ourselves. We had to look inwards and say, what can we do different? So I think now people are looking for more impact. So when you mentioned the 400 and something thousand social enterprises, I smile, because now you have to be able to measure those impacts. People want say, I'm giving you this money, but what have you done with it? Nobody's looking for numbers anymore. Nobody wants to say, I trained 500 people. What have the 500 people done? What have they done different? When you say we are dealing with cancer, people are asking you now, what preventives are we doing, and what kind of research is being done in that community so that the cancer numbers begin to drop? So they're asking us for more impact. They're asking us for M&Es, evaluating the programs, telling us exactly what is going on. And if you're one of those 400 and something thousand, you don't understand this, then you get into trouble.
You get
as well.
out of business.
Yes, yes.
Well, I think one of the things I also want to ask is, I mean, it's a popular saying, teach a man to learn how to fish and not just to give him fish. How much of that do you inculcate in your innovations and your work?
100%. I mean, the world is disruptive now. Innovation is key. You can't go out there and just be talking. You have to be able to show. You have to be able to, you know, so every time you're continuously disrupting, continuously innovating. And we also realize that you just don't teach. You teach to make people go back and teach. So it's almost doing like a trainer program. Even when you go to the villages, you're telling them that, telling the mother, this is how you take care of your child. And you're expecting her to do the same thing with her cousin, to also teach her daughter-in-law. So all these things, we're making sure that it's a more rounded and more robust solution. So we're not just giving solutions anymore. We're making sure it's more rounded now. Yeah.
How much of a challenge is it for when you come to the level of education or exposure of Nigerians?
Yeah.
How much challenge does that pose to you when you try to do your work, especially in the rural areas?
You just look, as you're seeing me today, this is not how I am. you have to adapt to a community.
Exactly.
Another thing that has changed over the last few years is that we don't come up with a one-fix-all solution anymore. So you go into a community, you see what the issues are. You are dealing with the head of the community, talking to the women in the, so you have to get yourself into the community, and then you come up with a solution that works for that particular community. I promise you, in some states, two communities are definitely not the same. I mean, we're all Nigerians. I'm from Edo State. I'll say Isha is different from Benin. So we're all different, and the way we want you to solve our problems, or even the issues that we're dealing with, are all different. So you have to be very inclusive in what you do. So when you go there, I'm not going to go in my heels and with my wig on and everything. You go back into the communities believing that everything is hands-on, and you're ready to listen as much as possible. Listen, learn. Unlearn a lot of things that you've been doing over the years and adapt it to the community you work with.
And this, I guess, is the path to development, because we've talked a lot about the developments we've seen in India, in China, how, for instance, they don't need, they use their local languages.
100%.
You understand, in schools. It's just customizing a solution to fit.
Yes, you have to fit the problem.
Yes.
I must tell you that if you don't do it that way, you're going to fail. I mean, we have so many projects that people have come to tell us about, and once they start talking about it, I say, which community are you going to? When they tell us, it's not going to work, because we also have customs, values. Every community is different. So some customs that you have in the different communities, you realize that it might not even work. I give an example. Someone was saying that I want to give mosquito nets in a community in Nigeria. And people were excited, gave them money to go and do this mosquito nets. They got into the community, gave them the mosquito nets, went away, and malaria numbers were going higher. Realized that they bury people in that community in white. Nobody wants white. Nobody wants white mosquito nets on looking over their head.
That's a lot of work for you guys.
Thank you. So you continuously learn. You look at the environment. You must unlearn everything that you think you know, and be open to soak up everything in that community, because you must come up with a solution that works for them.
That's a very interesting point.
Yes, keep on
I didn't know that, So because they bury people in white, so you give them mosquito nets, they did not use it.
No, because they don't want to.
It indicates death.
Death is coming, so why should I be using it every night on my head? And you could have come up with another solution that would have even cost less. Yes, exactly.
And things like
and even then maybe getting them more aware of the community and being healthy, more healthy. So you just have to do things different.
Now, how much of government's connection do you have?
I mean,
as a social enterprise?
You have to, work with government, and it's a tripod. You have the social, that's us, and the public sector, and of course, private sector. And so we have to all work together. Sometimes in communities, you work with the smaller governments, people that are working in the communities, and sometimes, of course, you have to deal with federal government. But with federal government, policies are key. You can't just wake up one day and decide that you want to do a certain thing. You have to make sure that the policies are in play, and you have to continuously know what they are doing. So you don't wake up and tomorrow non-profits don't even exist. So we do work with them across board, and depending on what kind of programs that we're having.
Yeah, so I've heard of some situations where a corporate or an individual want to do a job, do a road, decorate an area, maybe it's Christmas, and then they have to go to the local government, and then of course there you have the bureaucracy and all the politicking. And so even though you want to do a good without asking for anything in return, I believe it's still difficult for you. Is this a Nigerian thing?
No, it's normal. You can't just wake up tomorrow and say you want to do a road without. Government is government. They're the leaders, they're the ones that run the country. And it's the same thing I'm talking about when you go to communities as well. You just can't wake up there and they say you want to fix a borehole. You don't even know what is under the ground. So you have to continuously ask. You have to ask permission. You can't walk into a man's house.
I agree. I agree with asking permission.
Yes.
But my challenge is when they now make it difficult for you. I've heard of a situation where you have to oil some palms before you are allowed to do a job which you're going to spend money on. That's supposed to help improve the welfare of individuals in that community.
I've been working in this sector for 20-something years, and I've worked a lot with government in different. I've gone to practically all the 36 states in Nigeria. So I must tell you that when you come with a heart to do, you find out that the government or whoever is there, they're always willing to help. And if you find one or two bad seeds there, I mean that's normal. You find a way around it, and if it doesn't work for you, then you step away.
All right, Osayelile. Well, I feel your undertone vibes. I like it. Keep it up. And we do wish you the best because your success, of course, is the success of communities and individuals. And certainly we cannot wait for the government to do everything. So we need the impact of social entrepreneurs like you to help. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us this morning. So now we'll move to the market. As usual, what we do at this time, we have Anete joining us yesterday. Anete, I know that Anete did miss. Anete, you missed talking about your market yesterday, so you have all the time today to talk about your usual market.
Thank you so much. Of course, I'm very passionate.
Meet our guest. She's a social entrepreneur.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm sure you're quite interested in markets.
Definitely.
Which of the markets is your favorite? I like to know.
I'm a bit worried. I think you're trying to dig a hole for me.
Exactly.
No. Everyone has a preference. Some have a preference for the crypto. Some have a preference for equity.
She prefers the social work.
I prefer equity because, and you know, the safe one, because you know these days people are giving you money, you have to spend it right.
Exactly.
But crypto is getting me more interested.
Exactly. You put your money where your mouth is.
Thank you.
All right. So with that being said, let's go straight to the market, and we start first with the fixed income market. It was quiet at the fixed income at the bond segment of the fixed income market. There you have it there. The highest concentration was on the 18th of April 2037 paper, which had 4 deals. But when you take a look at the amount staked on it, 2 billion naira was staked on that paper. At the end of the day, total number of deals carried out, of course, there were other papers there, but the total number of deals carried out was 11 at a total value of 3 billion naira. Let's flip over to the other side of the market, the treasury bills market. It was also quiet, no doubt. There was a primary market auction yesterday. So what we had across this board here, we still had at the same we had 2 deals carried out on the 24th of November 2022 paper and the 15th of June 2023 paper. Cumulative 9 total number of deals and the value 4.19 billion naira. Let's flip over to the central bank's special bills. There you have it there. The 12th of September had the highest number of deals. The value 1.5 billion naira. Second by the 12th of September 2022. Well, another side of that paper. So total number of deals carried out there, NOS was 5. Let's flip over to the last part of that market, the open markets operations. It had just 1 paper traded as of yesterday, the 6th of June 2023 paper, which had 7 deals at 16.27 billion naira. So that's it for that market. So we will be talking to Princess Iruoba, who is a fixed income trader at FSDH Merchant Bank. So she'll be the one to tell us more about the market. So if we have it there, Princess, if you can hear me, can you kindly give us an overview of the market activities at the close of midweek trading session?
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, you alluded to a huge part of it. The market opened this week relatively on a calm note. 2 major activities. Yesterday, we had an NTB maturity of about 214 billion, and we saw rates move, or the stop rate increase by about 128 basis points to new levels that we've not really seen this year in primary market auction. Also, on the bond space, we saw an update to the September bond auction calendar, where the longest tenure bond, which is the 2042s, was replaced by the 2037s. And as such, we've seen activities on those two papers, the 2037s and the 2042s. Market was relatively short on 2042s, and we've seen people try and cover that. For the NTB auction, like I mentioned earlier on, it closed higher at the longest closing at 10%. So we expect that today we'll see that filter into the market today. But by and large, market has largely been quiet with these two major activities kind of spoiling demand across the bills and the bond space.
Okay, it has been, like you said, and let me also say it again, the market has been quiet all the way this week. What do you expect, or how do you expect the market to close today's activity? And what is your outlook for next week, particularly when you take into cognizance that the inflation data will be released by this time next week?
Okay, for today, we expect that there'll be some form of readjustment in secondary market space, considering where the NTB auctions top rates were. We expect that markets will likely be bearish. Regards to the inflation, real returns are still negative. We don't expect that should change anytime soon. And markets will largely trade sentiment. And the major drivers for market as of today is largely liquidity. We don't expect that much will change with inflation. However, expectations are at the next MPC meeting, there might be some form of hike in MPR rate. Pending that, and the actual inflation data doesn't exactly, we don't expect any large impact in terms of activities if it prints higher than the last month.
Quite interesting. So thank you so much, Princess. And as usual, we keep our eyes on the markets, and we advise our investors. Now let's go over to the equities market. More than 24 billion is what was shaved off from this amount here, which has now fallen below the 27 trillion level to about 26.753 trillion. There you can see there on the board. And in terms of the index value, it has receded further. On Tuesday, what we had was a minus 0.69% drop. But yesterday, yes, it's still on the downside, but by a minor, slightly lower level compared to what it had. But then the 49,000 level is still going further down, no thanks to profit taking. Let's move over to the sectoral performance. This is what caused the market's downturn. The banking counter, the insurance counter, as well as the oil and gas counter. But the consumer goods has been able to maintain positive sentiment for 3 consecutive sessions. So there you have it, Tini.
Yeah, there we see that I think the banking dragged the market down yesterday. They'll be back.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Anita. Yes, thank you so much for the market details. We'll head to London in just a bit. That'll be after the break. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. Welcome back. Going to the UK now. Looks like the celebrations for the new Prime Minister Liz Truss is over. Realities are very stock is looking very dark and gloomy at this time. We have Juliana to give us the details. Hey, Juliana, good morning. Starting with the pound now, Juliana, the pound is down 37-year low, and some people have gone up to explain that is the lowest since Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. These are very harsh times for the new Prime Minister.
There are very tough times for the Prime Minister. In fact, she's just setting out, I believe, in the next hour or so, Liz Truss will be announcing what we believe to be a £150 billion energy package to try and get households through what is going to be a really difficult winter in the UK, and it is affecting every part of the British economy, including the British pound, where, as you say, at close of play yesterday, it was trading at $1.14. That is the lowest it's been since 1987. I was just 1 year old at that time. Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister, and it's worse than after the Brexit referendum, when we know sterling took a huge pummeling, and also after the announcement of the first lockdown in February 2020. So it just goes to show how difficult and bitter the situation is in the UK at the moment. Yesterday, there were discussions with the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, Kwasi Kwarteng, and Andrew Bailey, the Bank of England governor. He was hauled in front of the Treasury Select Committee to talk about Britain's economic future. The Bank of England is still clear on their forecast, which is that the entirety of 2023, the UK will be in recession. So it isn't great, but let's wait and see what the Prime Minister has to say about this new energy plan, and if that will be enough to keep people going out into the shops, spending that extra cash, because of course that is what's needed to boost the British economy.
Yeah, Juliana, because already people are asking where's the funding going to be coming from. But I guess we'll talk about that during Business Incorporated. By then should have made that announcement and told us where she's going to get the funding from. But another thing still connected to the energy is the ban. She wants to scrap the ban on fracking. That's supposed to help with energy.
Yes, fracking is a controversial term in the UK. What it basically is drilling holes into the ground with some sort of chemical mixture of chemicals, sand and water. And if you're able to do that successfully, then you can bring out shale gas. So it's kind of like an artificial gas, but something that is used in some parts of the world. It was a 2019 Conservative manifesto to ban fracking because, of course, you can imagine environmentalists are up in arms, because one of the risks and dangers of fracking is that it can cause earth tremors, and that can lead to earthquakes. And of course, let's not forget, Britain is a very, very small island, and with the way the climate is going at the moment, we've got to be very, very careful not to poke the bear. But because we are facing such a severe energy crisis at the moment, Liz Truss is set to announce, alongside this new £150 billion energy support, that fracking is now going to be allowed. You can't do it everywhere in the UK. Of course, this shale gas is not available everywhere. It is available in about 100 sites in the north of England. And at the moment, I believe only 48% of British energy supply is available domestically. If we were not to export, it would be about 55%. But it's got to come from somewhere. We know that Putin is holding Europe hostage, and Britain so desperately want to get out of that situation, which is why we are expecting the new Prime Minister to announce that fracking is now going to be allowed, but expect some pretty controversial protests, including from her own MPs, who are also not totally aligned with this new plan.
Yeah, sure. It's going to be a very tough balance there for that fracking thing. But Juliana, we'll talk to you at 1:30, and by then we'll get the details of that energy plan.
Thanks, Annie.
All right, so now we are going to the markets, the crypto markets at this time, to find out how that market is doing. Is it doing better than yesterday? Doesn't look like it, because we see, if we have the numbers, the Fear Greed Index numbers now, we see that that number is not looking better than yesterday. Well, the Fear Greed today stands at 20, which is still extreme fear at this time. And investors are still not comfortable getting into the market yet. Well, we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, because the parameters everywhere are not looking good. Interest rate hike is still a major thing, and so we do expect, and then the dollar is still getting stronger, and as we know, once the dollar is getting stronger, commodities and markets react adversely. So that's why we still have that 20. This is worse than yesterday for today. And then the market cap has gone up just a bit, 4.41%. We're still struggling to get back to that $1 trillion. We used to rejoice at 2 trillion, but that's in the past now, at least for now. 24-hour volume, minus 18.79% at almost $70 billion. BTC dominance is lower today at 37. Yesterday, we were about 38. Now it's 37.76 in 24 hours. If we'll go there to the price of Bitcoin, well, at least it's back to 19 now. see if we'll get back to 20. It's 2.91% higher. 24-hour volume is 32.76. And then if we would see price of Ethereum, well, Ethereum is even higher, but of course is the king of alt anyway. 1,636.84. It's up 7.75%. And 24-hour volume is 17.76. So we'll see top alts by market caps better, much better than yesterday. Remember, yesterday we had reds. So here today we have BNB, Cardano, eCash, XRP, all in the green, up 5.9%, almost 6 for BNB. 3.4 for Cardano, 5.36 for eCash, and more than 6% for XRP. So it's looking a little bit good there for top alts by market cap, and top gainers up. This was the reverse. Yesterday we had double digits for top losers, and then we had single digits. So looks like there's a little bit of breather. But we have Bjorn Martins now to join us to have a conversation. Hi, Bjorn. Good morning. Oh, looks like we lost Bjorn there. We hope we can get him just before the show is over. So there it's better top gainers than yesterday, and of course, if it's double digits in top gainers, top losers would expect to be the reverse, and that's exactly what we have here. Single digits for losses, and so looking a little bit better than yesterday. No wonder the Bitcoin also we see is a little bit better than yesterday. So it's still a market that we'll watch. Doesn't look like we will have Bjorn join us. So we hope we can have him tomorrow or next week. But that's where we'll draw the curtains for the program Business Morning for today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I do hope that you had enjoyed the conversations as much as I've enjoyed bringing them to you, from the commodities to the social enterprises, and get to know some things, you know, right there. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Another interesting package awaits you tomorrow. Meanwhile, I'll be back at 1:30. Business Incorporated will be here. We'll have updates from the world of business. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Enjoy the rest of your day.